I want to show you just one of the most brutal clapbacks, for lack of a better phrase, where a former Trump administration official and current Trump supporter, so he's not one of the ones who is against Trump, he's still a Trump guy, Sean Spicer, he thought he was posting something cute and quirky and an insult against President Biden. And then a man by the name of Fred Wellman responded to him in a way that makes so many good points so succinctly and just dissolves the point Sean Spicer was trying to make so quickly that I had to talk about it here. The back and forth I've responded to that I'm about to read to you on X saying 911, I'd like to report a murder. Okay, that's how brutal the takedown is that we're about to go through. So Sean Spicer posted, as we approach Thursday debate night, Trump should start Thursday's debate by yielding his time to Biden with a simple question. Can you name every member of your cabinet? Okay, so Biden won't be able to do it, right? That message. And Fred Wellman just beautifully responds saying, that's hilarious. Can Trump name the 44 of his cabinet members that now say they won't support him for president again? I mean, he fired you and you're still kissing his ass. What does that say about you, Sean? And I know what it says. Just perfect. Truly perfect. And people seem to be absolutely vibing with that take there. And it's so beautiful because the point that's trying to, the attempted point here from Sean Spicer is that the cognitive allegations that Republicans keep making against Biden, often in very deceptive ways, that those are correct and that Biden thus would have a hard time naming his cabinet officials. But the second you bring up cabinet officials, it should be noted that so many members of Trump's administration say he's unfit to be president. If we're going to even talk about mental fitness, what's one of the things we keep mentioning? Two big points. The first is that experts have weighed in, psychologists, psychiatrists, mental health professionals, and say what they're seeing from Biden is normal aging that doesn't impact one's critical thinking ability to govern as president. What they're seeing in Trump is something far more concerning and what could impact his ability to be fit mentally for the presidency. So that's point one. Okay. But you set that aside. And one of the things we also focus a lot on is you have person after person who came out of the Trump administration saying, this guy is not mentally fit to be president. Mentally or otherwise fit to be president. Not a single person has come out of Biden's administration saying that. Things leak. You can't keep something like that under wraps. And nobody says that about Biden. And so many people who worked right alongside Trump, the most important decisions they were able to observe him making, and bad things to say. Do you remember this now iconic moment where Fox News host Bret Baier reads some of what Trump's former staff members have said about him and what Trump has said about them? I should say, this is to Trump's face.
You said that. I'm going to surround myself with only the best and most serious people.
Well, I did do that, and we had tremendous. Look, we had the best economy we've ever had. The world has ever seen.
Your Vice President, Mike Pence, is running against you.
Yeah.
Your Ambassador to the United Nations, Nikki Haley, she's running against you. Your former Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo, said he's not supporting you. You mentioned National Security Advisor John Bolton. He's not supporting you either. You mentioned Attorney General Bill Barr, says you shouldn't be president again, calls you the consummate narcissist and troubled man. You recently called Barr a gutless pig. Your second defense secretary is not supporting you, called you irresponsible. This week, you and your White House called your White House Chief of Staff, John Kelly, weak and ineffective and born with a very small brain. You called your acting White House Chief of Staff, Mick Mulvaney, a born loser. You called your first Secretary of State, Rex Tillerson, dumb as a rock. And your first Defense Secretary, James Mattis, the world's most overrated general. You called your White House Press Secretary, Kayleigh Canadian, milquetoast. And multiple times you've referred to your Transportation Secretary, Elaine Chao, as Mitch McConnell's China-loving wife. So why did you hire all of them in the first place?
Right. And that's not even the best list of people saying things about Trump. We've gone through it before, but here's Trump's former defense secretary right there in the room for critical decision Mark Esper saying this.
The attack on the Capitol. I'm just curious, Mr. Secretary, do you view Donald Trump as a threat to American democracy?
Well, first of all, good to be with you, Jim. It is a tragic day in our nation's history. And yes, I do regard him as a threat to democracy. Democracy as we know it, our institutions.
Former defense secretary, which, by the way, that position, normally you're not in the habit of going out publicly and even lightly critiquing your boss or former boss. Saying Trump is a threat to democracy as we know it. You also have former Trump administration official Anthony Scaramucci saying this.
The world. And I would ask these people to think about it. Let's say the 40 of us work for a pharmaceutical company and we told you that the drug was going to kill you, or we work for an automotive company and we say that car is going to crash and kill your family. You've got 40 people that work directly and in touch with Mr. Trump. You can't say that they're never Trumpers and all that other stuff, because we were once Trumpers. But we've seen what he is like, the full criminality of him. We've seen what he's like in terms of his destructive capabilities. And when I say he's un-American, he says he's un-American. He disavows the Constitution. He wants to go after you, Jake Tapper, and CNN. He wants to take your FCC license away. He has told his lawyers, his defense counsel lawyers, many of which that have dropped him, that he'd like to use the FBI as the Gestapo. You know, and the only good thing about that is he doesn't understand history, so he doesn't even know what the word Gestapo means. But this is a very dangerous guy. He shouldn't be anywhere near that White House again. And whatever shortcomings that President Biden may or may not have.
Right. So it's a great comparison to, imagine if 40 employees left a company and said, this drug is going to kill you. Would that worry? Especially if it were a vaccine. Lord help us. MAGA would explode. But would you trust that company? Nay. Would you trust one guy in that company? Sometimes we'll go through the Occam's razor question, right? What's the simplest explanation? Every single person comes out of this group, I guess they're saying 40, 44, comes out of the administration saying, this guy's a lunatic, threat to democracy, un-American, Scaramucci said, not fit to be president, should be nowhere near the White House. Dozens of people are just making this up for fun, torching their political career in Republican politics to say it just cuz, or Trump's the one who has every reason in the world to say they're lying, who's actually the one lying. Same thing with all the cases. We went through in the recent video with Trump supporters. So the 2016 popular vote, Trump said, was rigged. That's why he didn't win the popular vote, is what Trump said. 2020 popular vote, actually it goes back further. The Republican primary races that he lost in 2016, he said, were rigged. Then the 2016 popular vote, then the 2020 election, then his criminal case in New York, criminal case in Florida, criminal case in DC, criminal case in Fulton County. All of those are rigged. 60 plus court cases were all rigged that determined the election to be legitimate. Every single recount, every single investigation, every single audit, all of those were rigged in determining the election results were legitimate. His civil case, where he was found to be a civilly liable rapist, that one was rigged, obviously. Come on. No way. Even though he said that he did that on tape, but okay. And then his fraud case in New York with business fraud. Oh, that's obviously rigged. Bad photographs of him were doctored. Or he just did the stuff, right? That's a really easier way to explain it, right? Or he just did some bad stuff and now he's dealing with the repercussions. Hundreds, thousands of people, if you combine all the rigged allegations, would have to have worked in conspiracies to rig things against Trump. Or one person did this stuff. One person engaged in wrongdoing. But MAGA goes with Trump. Here is Alyssa Farah-Griffin, Sarah Matthews, and Cassidy Hutchinson in an ABC interview we've looked at in the past, also saying this.
In your mind, if Donald Trump became president again, what would a second Trump term look like? fundamentally, a second Trump term could mean the end of American democracy as we know it. And I don't say that lightly. We all witnessed him trying to steal a democratic election before and going to historic and unconstitutional lengths to do so. And that just shows that he's willing to basically break every barrier to get into power and to stay into power. But also, I'm very concerned about what the term would actually look like.
We don't need to speculate what a second Trump term would look like, because we already saw it play out. To this day, he still doubles down on the fact that he thinks that the election was stolen and fraudulent. And then his rhetoric has just gotten increasingly erratic. I mean, he has literally called for things like doing away with parts of the Constitution, wanting to weaponize the DOJ to enact revenge on his political enemies.
The fact that he feels that he needs to lean into being a dictator alone shows that he is a weak and feeble man who has no sense of character and integrity and has no sense of leadership.
Everyone who is in
Former Trump administration officials saying that. Find me the clip of one person, one singular human person saying a tenth of that about Biden after working with him. You can't. Overwhelmingly positive things to say about the former boss. One thing from those who I've talked to who've worked with Biden that's constantly on their mind is it's so upsetting that the impressed feelings they have about Biden others don't see because of the clip, soundbiteable portrayal of Biden in much of the media. And I wish that even if they wouldn't fully agree with every critique, that every Trump supporter would just hear this, would just try to listen for a second. Maybe the guy who is now a convicted felon, who is an adjudicated fraudster, who is an adjudicated civil libel rapist, who has been proven to have told tens of thousands, literally, of lies, and who lathers orange makeup on his face every day. That's not relevant, but I just wanted to add it. Maybe he's not the savior that you think that he is. Let me know what you thought of all that in the comments. If you want to get the extra episode of the show daily, you can do so by clicking that join button below.